Welcome to the Hurt Locker, a podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. And tonight's guest, we've got James Redmond. James, welcome.
Thank you very much.
How are you this evening?
I'm all right, yeah. It's been sort of muggy here and sweaty without being sunny, but I hear it's sunny up there, is it?
It is sunny in Liverpool. That sounds like a title. That sounds like a title for a play or something. It's sunny in Liverpool, but I'll leave that for you.
Yeah, I'm in London. It's not so sunny today. Right now it actually is, but it'll go back in again in a minute.
Okay. So how long have you been living in London for?
This time it's been 16 years. 16 years.
Yeah, that's a long time then. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I was in Liverpool for 4 years, just near you actually, just off Egworth Road. I was there for a bit, and then over in Chilwell a bit as well. I was there for about 4 years, but that was a good 20 years ago.
Okay, so where did you grow up then?
Well, I grew up in London till I was 10, and then Bristol. But my dad was from Crosby, so yeah, I've got family up on the Wirral and Liverpool, and then some in Manchester too. So I do know the Northwest quite well.
Would you class yourself as a Scouser then, through your dad, or not really?
Only in football terms. I'm a big red. So
okay,
yeah.
But, good man.
I mean, I do love the city. I love living up there, but I couldn't get away with calling myself a Scouser.
Okay. And how do you find it living in the smoke, as I like to call it, in London?
I mean, it's all right. At first, it's quite daunting, isn't it? I think people get a bit worried by it. It's too big. You don't really meet people, because too many people here. But really, it's just lots of small villages that have kind of, amalgamated into one. So if you live in a certain area and if you're friendly, like I am, and I'm sure you are, you meet people. You meet everyone who works in the shops and the bars and the pubs and all that, and the gym and your neighbours and all that, and then it's a village, and then I would only go into central London about once a week, once a fortnight.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about you then. Tell me what was growing up like. You've told me the various places where you did live. What was growing up like for you?
Well, I didn't find school easy. I've got ADHD, or I certainly had ADHD. I was very badly behaved, and I had difficulties obviously with my attention, but I did okay at school until I was about sort of 14, 15, when you had to do homework and you had to pass exams. Prior to that, I was pretty good, which was kind of infuriating for my teachers, because I'd be messing about, doing impressions of them, getting kicked out of the class, and then I'd come near the top in the exams, in the tests and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've realised later in life that a lot of it was down to my diet. I was eating loads of sugary things and numbers and pesticides and chemicals and stuff, surviving on tartrazine, orange squash and all that. And that was part of the problem, really. But yeah, I mean, I loved sport. So I kind of threw myself into sport, really. And then later on into sort of music and all of that. But yeah, it was a struggle. More so for my parents than for me.
Okay. For the benefit of our listeners, and we're not going to focus too much, but tell people who your father is.
Well, everyone thinks my father is Phil Redmond, who devised Brookside and Grange Hill and all that. But he's not. My dad was called Bill. He actually passed away in November. He worked at John Lewis. He started at Lewis's in Liverpool, and then he moved to John Lewis. And he worked all around the UK at different branches. That's why we moved around a lot. But yeah, he was a lovely man, very very good with people, a real sort of people person, very charming and a good public speaker. And I think that's where I get my interest in public speaking and acting and comedy from.
But with the name Redmond, I'm sure that would have opened a few doors for you along the way.
Well, no, I mean, people assumed that perhaps we are related, because I met him obviously a few times when I was doing Hollyoaks. He was up there. And also he's a big red as well. So I used to see him at the match a lot. And his father was from Anfield and my grandfather was. So we probably are related. It's not a very popular name because it's an Irish name from Wexford, and they were sort of the leaders of the Fenian Party, you know, which took arms against the British invaders, you know, and all that. So they didn't do so well. But a lot of them moved to Liverpool and Edinburgh. There were quite a few Redmonds in those two cities.
Okay. And so, growing up, did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got one of each, both younger, both quite different to me. Yeah, and I think me being a bit disruptive at school sort of affected my brother a bit because he was 2 years younger. It was an all-boys school, so, you know, I had a reputation for fighting and for getting in trouble, so that affected him a little bit. But my sister, being at an all-girls school and 5 years younger, didn't have that. So we've got a very different relationship, my sister and I, compared to my brother and me.
In what sense?
Well, my brother and I were really close for a long time. And then when he got into his, I guess, 40s, he started bringing up stuff from when we were kids or teenagers, you know, and complaining about my behavior. And I'd really sort of look at myself and say, well, I don't remember a lot of these things that you're talking about, you know, but they do sound like me. So all I can do is apologize. You know, I'm sorry if I bullied you a bit, or if I was embarrassing at times, or, you know, if I drew attention to you, you know, with my actions at school or whatever. And then we sort of cleared the air, and now we get on, you know. But for a long time, there's a bit of friction because we were very close, but there was that sort of, I didn't realize, but he had that sort of grudge against me, you know. So we've dealt with that now.
That must have felt sobering for you, though, to a degree, to hear.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking, really, because yeah, it'd be one of those things where, you know, you're messaging almost every day. It's all positive stuff about sports or, you know, music, or, you know, we've got the same circle of friends in Bristol, and then suddenly it would be the odd dig or the odd sort of negative thing, and I think, is that a joke? Or I don't remember. I'm not sure of the reference here, you know. So that was his way of sort of broaching the subject, really. And then we had a few big arguments and fallings out and stuff. But as I say, you know, well, actually, when my father got ill, he had motor neurone disease, which is an awful way to go, you know, just deteriorating. And my brother was still in Bristol, so he helped out massively. He was there every day, pretty much, helping my dad and my mum. And my sister and I are both in London. So we were sort of visiting, you know, once a week or once a fortnight, whatever we could. And just through that, you know, we kind of came back together, and I was seeing him more and speaking to him more, and getting on better. And obviously I was very grateful for all the hard work, really, that he was doing, you know, helping my parents. So that kind of healed things, yeah.
And your relationship with your sister? How's that been over the years?
That's always been strong. As I said, there's a bigger age gap, 5 years, and we're not competitive, you know, because, you know, my brother and I are both very sporty, both in the sports teams at school. And if anything, he was a bit bigger and stronger and faster than I was, but I was 2 years older, you know, so we were quite competitive. Whereas my sister, you know, she is quite sporty, but she's more into the arts. And yeah, there was no competition really. We always got on well and never argued, really. I mean, she might say that's not true, but I certainly can't remember ever falling out with her. And she's very bright, and she's very sensitive, and she did psychology at university, so she's a very good listener, and it's very difficult to fall out with. You know, she's very, very calm and just a very warm and lovely, giving person. So I'm lucky in that regard.
I probably would have asked you this question later on into our talk, but I don't know. I'm asking now. I'm assuming, I'm making these assumptions now, but you loved your brother, you loved your sister. Did you tell them that? No,
never. My parents never said it, which is bizarre, isn't it? To sort of think about now. Maybe it's not for you. I don't know, but I realised, you know, because my dad was very affectionate and communicative and tactile. You know, he was a lovely, warm giant, cuddly giant. He was always playing sports with us and giving us cuddles and all of that, but never said I love you. It just wasn't a thing, and my mum is the opposite. She's not very affectionate, not very physical with her love, but she does everything, cooks and cleans and does everything for you, and that's how she shows her love, And it wasn't really till my divorce, which was 18 years ago now, when I was at a very low point, that I was talking to a psychiatrist then, and he said, yeah, that's pretty unusual not to have been told I love you by your parents, and I did discuss it with them, and them being Northerners, born during the war, they were saying, well, we do love you very much, but it's just not something that we grew up saying. And their parents were the same, But we say it. I mean, obviously, Dad's gone now, but I say it more now, and certainly to my siblings. And I mean, we've only been saying it to each other probably for the last sort of maybe 5 or 10 years, and it is important, isn't it? Never saying it is, you don't realise, but it is strange, really.
It's I think for me, never experienced that of my father, or even being tactile. I don't know if you overcompensate, as it were, but I found it unusual not to hear that, and for me not to be able to be in a position to reciprocate that. That looking back, that feels quite strange, quite weird, bizarre.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not having the chance to reciprocate. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's no excuse for my behaviour. Certainly, as a kid or a teenager, I was terrible. But yeah, it is a strange thing, isn't it? I mean, I knew they loved me. That wasn't a problem. It's just when don't say that. I don't think they've ever said that. I've got a 3-year-old daughter now, and it took us a long time to conceive, my girlfriend and I. Third time lucky, we've got this beautiful daughter who's great. And we said, look, as long as she's healthy and happy, and she knows she's loved, then that's the main thing that we want. So we're saying, I mean, I say it if anything too often, and I say it pretty much every day to my daughter, and she started saying it back now, which is great. And it's not just because she wants something, because at first she'd sort of look at me and think, well, how can I get an ice cream?
That was the key. That was the key.
Manipulative.
You realised very early on.
But actually now it's just off the cuff, she just says it, which is great. And I thought it is important, it might feel soft or sound soft for guys particularly to say it to each other, but it's important, I think, isn't it? I mean, one of the only friend really who used to say it before I started saying it was a guy up in Liverpool, actually, who would say, he'd say, peace and love, or would say, love you, man, at the end of a conversation, or, after I'd seen him for a day out, whatever, and I thought, at first I felt that is strange to hear that, but, he's very comfortable in who he is. He's a straight guy. He knows I'm a straight guy. And it's just stating the fact that, you're one of my best friends. It's lovely to see you. See you soon, kind of thing, and then you get used to it and you think that's really important. And people react in different ways. When I say it to people react in different ways. Some, as you say, reciprocate, and some kind of get a bit sort of,
Do you find it easy to? Yeah. Okay. Can I ask?
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, your screen frozen there.
Am I back now? You're still moving on yours, but it's a bit blurry. Can you hear me?
Yinka,
yes.
Can you hear both of us? Yeah, so your screen's just a little bit blurry. There's a little bit of a lag.
Is my side blurry?
Yourself and James, so a little bit, but don't worry too much about the visuals. It's more about the audio and stuff. So the last kind of question that you asked James, there's a bit of a fallout there. So whatever you asked him about, say 20, 30 seconds ago, just take your time and we'll take it from there and see.
Okay. So I think the question I was going to ask then, you can offer that and say, I love you easily. What's your relationship like with your sister? Is it easy to say, I love you now? She's being more receptive to that.
Yeah, I think because we've both been through difficult times, and we both kind of helped each other out. You know, she's helped me more than I've helped her, but that helps, doesn't it? You know, when you're in a really low place, you know, I cried while I was going through my divorce, and it was the first time in, God, it must be like 15, 20 years that I cried. You know, I think the time before was watching football, watching Gascoigne cry in 1990. And I realized, Jesus, I haven't cried in all that time. I'm an actor. I should be able to cry, you know. But you just fake it, you know, because you can't do it. Because I had some scenes on Casualty where I had to break down. And I just had to sort of, you know, I really felt the feelings. I was really, you know, being emotional, but no actual tears came out, you know. But then you get used to it and you get better at it. And it's really, you know, therapeutic just to sort of let it all out. And then in those moments, you know, talking to my sister about stuff that she was going through or I was going through, then you say, look, thank you so much. You know, you're being so helpful and I love you, you know, and it feels natural. And we don't say it so much on a regular basis now, but you know, we know, and it's all good, you know, and we could do it any moment kind of thing, you know.
Okay. So just take me through your after school. What happened next for you?
Well, I got expelled.
Okay.
I got expelled at 15. I hadn't taken my GCSEs. So my parents, I'd been to a public school, very expensive public school. So that was great, getting expelled. And then my parents forked out even more money to send me to a crammer, which is where the naughty kids at public school go to get one-to-one tutoring and pass their exams. And I was bunking off class. It's like, it's quite easy to bunk off class when there's 35 of you, but not so much when there's only one of you. But I did get some GCSEs. I went to a sixth form college and then tried to do some A-levels, couldn't get into it. And then just went off traveling. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I got scouted to start modeling, which I was like, okay, that's something I could do. And this guy I met said, look, you know, you can come into the agency in Milan. This was in Greece. I met him in a bar. He said, oh, I'm an agent. I said, oh, okay, where's your agency? Milan. I said, oh, well, I don't even live in London. I live in Bristol. But the girl I was seeing at the time was from Como, which is next door to Milan. So I said, well, I'll go over. And my cousin was living in Milan too. She was a dancer at the time. So I'll go over and see this girl, and I'll go and see my cousin, and I'll go and see them and see what happens, you know. And I started working immediately. I was very lucky. So that was great. I was suddenly earning money, and okay, this is brilliant, you know. And I was modeling then for 5.5 years, which was fantastic, traveling around the world, living in Milan, in Paris, in New York, going to.
How old were you?
I was 22 then, so I did sort of 5.5 years of that before I started doing Hollyoaks. And I only really got into Hollyoaks. I didn't do any studying, did no drama school or stage school or even a school play. I did a couple of house plays, but that was it pretty much. And then I did a few TV commercials. Hello.
Oh, hi.
She thinks she couldn't see you. I didn't say anything. Blushing now.
It's all right, it's fine. She was thinking modelling him, no chance. It's a long time ago. It's like 30 years ago. I did a few TV commercials, and Hollyoaks casting director Dorothy Andrews. She saw one and thought, oh, that's the kind of guy we want for this character, Finn on Hollyoaks. So I went up to audition for it, and my agent at the time, my model agent, said, well, you won't get it. You're not an actor. You've done no lessons. but go up and see what you think, you know, and perhaps if you like it, we can start you on some lessons, you know. And I got it. I couldn't believe it. And I've spoken to Phil Redmond since, and he said, "Do you remember what you did at your audition?" I said, "No." And he said, "You told us not to give you the job." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah. When we gave you the job," I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. I'm not an actor. You don't want me. I'm just here for the experience." And he said, "Oh, we think you've got potential." I said, "Yeah, but I don't know what I'm doing. I wouldn't know about cameras or anything like that." And he said, "Well, we can help you with that." I said, "No, no, get one of the other guys because they'll know what they're doing. I don't want to waste your time." And he said, they thought, "Great, this is brilliant because this guy, you know, is honest." Whereas a few of the others that they were considering were a bit more full of themselves, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I got there and I was so nervous. I didn't know about hitting marks and shadowing each other, overlapping each other, and couldn't act, you know. But I was lucky that I learned a lot on that job because most of the actors were around my age and they'd done drama school or stage school and they were helping me, or a few were. And the directors were all straight from, you know, film school. So they were learning a bit on the job too. And they were great. They were giving me notes and direction and help. Whereas other shows I've worked on since then, we've got really big established stars, and directors are a bit afraid to give them notes. You know, how do you give Charlie from Casualty a note? Don't talk like that. I think your character would do this. No, he wouldn't. I've been here 40 years. You know, so I was very, very lucky, and sort of fell into acting then, and did some presenting for a bit, and then back into acting, and then I've always fancied doing comedy. And it was actually my divorce that got me into comedy because I was really depressed. And I saw this shrink in Bristol, and he was saying, "You get out and talk about your problems and learn a new skill, and you know, and meet new people." And I thought, well, this is all, I could just go and do this comedy course. And I really loved it, and then started gigging. But I must tell you one thing that I'm sure you'll know this, but it's one thing that whenever anyone ever talks to me about mental health, which is great for me because I'm actually fine at the moment, you know, but just trying to talk about mental health and give advice at times, like I'm not any expert, but you're kind of talking to yourself, aren't you, and reminding yourself of all these things. And this shrink I had in Bristol was brilliant, and he said to me, he said, "James, there are two different types of depression. There's natural and nurtured. Nothing really bad has happened to you. Nothing terrible that I can see you've got a trauma about, you know. But so yours is a natural thing. You tell me that you get really down and suicidal at times when you haven't exercised and you've been drinking or you've done drugs or you've eaten really bad food, you know. So you know that because it was always the mornings that I would wake up feeling terrible, couldn't get out of bed. And he said, "Well, ask yourself, what's happened during the night? Have you had any news?" "No, I haven't." He said, "Well, so you haven't had any news about your health or your career or the health of your loved ones?" "No." "Okay. So nothing's happened. So it's not that's causing the depression. It's a chemical in your brain. You know, you've stopped producing serotonin or whatever. And that's because you haven't exercised in a few days and you've probably had a drink or done some drugs or you've eaten loads of fast food or numbers, pesticides, you know, all this stuff. And that's what's happened. So you can fix yourself." So that was a revelation for me. He said to me, "Right, so you know how to fix yourself. So it was lovely to meet you. All the best." And I went, oh. And he said, "Or ignore what I've just said. I'll see you next week and give me some more money."
Touche.
Yeah.
You know what? Touche.
It's good, isn't it?
Touche. I've got when I've worked with people in the past, I've done either mindfulness, we've looked at people's sleep patterns, how they sleep, whether or not they are taking drugs or alcohol, etc., etc. We'll get them to do journaling, etc., etc. And then 6 months from now, and I've said this before, they may return and they'll say, "Oh, Yinka, my life's this, my life's that." And I'll say, "Well, what was happening 6 months ago? I was doing exercise, I was going to the gym, I was journaling, I was sleeping, I wasn't partying and all that." And I say, "Great." And I'll say then, "So what's changed?" "Well, I was sound about myself, so I stopped doing all those things.
Yeah.
Like, there's your answer.
Yeah.
There's
And the
your
brain's
answer.
muscle, you know, the brain's a muscle. I broke my shoulder, dislocated my shoulder 18 months ago. And I had the same thing with the physio, you know. He said to me, right, so you've got these movements you got to do. It takes 10 minutes to do these exercises. It's painful, but you'll get more range in your shoulder, more strength in your shoulder if you do 10 minutes a day. He said, so if you do that, all the best. If you don't do it, I'll see you next month like the rest of my clients.
Oh my God. You don't realize how simplistic what you've just said.
I know.
That would cure so many people's ills
Really would. But the thing is,
if they
that's
just invested that time.
yeah, I mean, that's not to trivialize anyone who's got a trauma, because that's very different. You know, if you're dealing with trauma from your childhood, as you would know, that's different completely, you know, because your depression isn't coming from having a drink, or I mean, that might make it worse. I mean, I've got a friend who's like that. Had some terrible things happen to her as a kid and as an adult. So she's visited by these demons a lot, you know, and she's got very low self-esteem and all that. But also, you know, she drinks, she doesn't exercise, and she eats a lot of fast food. So that's like two different reasons that she gets down, you know. But certainly, if you're lucky like me, and it's just the sensitivity, because they're saying now it's to do with gut health, aren't they? It's to do with bacteria in your gut. And actually, depression, or some types of depression, are actually an allergic reaction, or a reaction to leaky gut, you know, that you've been eating the wrong stuff, and you've got these chemicals going around your body and, you know, killing off all your serotonin.
I mean, there's so much new research that's coming out constantly, and you can't keep up with it. And science is playing catch up to the way that our bodies operate and function. And we've never been able to be ahead of the curve, as it were. So in the interim, we might prescribe medication, etc., as a way to deal with. But even with the medication, in my opinion, it's got some benefit, but it's not the panacea for all. And some of the ways of our natural ways of living. Go on, sorry.
So no, often it's just it's a plaster, isn't it, over a cut? You know, it's a cure rather than a prevention. You know, and you think, well, no, if you want to stop, you know, breaking your bones and getting cuts and bruises, stop getting into fights. You know, and you can stop getting into fights by drinking less and dealing with your anger. You know, or you can just keep doing all that bad stuff, and then, you know, eventually someone's going to really hurt you. You know, and you're going to be plasters and you know, slings are not going to be enough. You know.
Can you just go back a little bit when you said you were sitting with a psychiatrist? He described two types of depression. Yeah. What were the two types again? Just mention them.
Well, I mean, this is obviously you'll know more, but he broke it down for a layman like me. He said it's nurtured or natural. You know, it's either stuff that's happened to you, or it's just you've got a propensity. You know, you've got a sensitivity to certain drugs, alcohol, chemicals, pesticides, numbers, sugar. There's all types of things that can affect your mood, and so that's just a natural problem that you've got. And you know, because I saw this DVD on ADHD, and it asked all these questions about, you know, about life, and then you tick a yes or no, whatever. And if you answered yes to 6 or more, then you've got it. And I was 9 out of 10. I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. I thought everyone had these feelings and thoughts and behaviors. And then it was kind of telling you, I was 35 at the time. I was doing casualty. I was actually doing some research for an episode about ADHD. And it said all the different remedies, how you can help avoid getting, you know, the effects of ADHD. And I thought, well, I do all these, you know. I've learned on my own that sugar makes me crazy. and my attention span is, you know, 0. I've learned that alcohol does that too. I've learned that if I don't exercise every other day, I get really hyper and angry about stuff that isn't that important, and then really low and depressed and often suicidal, you know. So I think it's all linked.
100%. So James, for me, and I think you learned early on from school days in terms of, when I asked you for your explanation, it wasn't necessarily about that nature and nurture. For me, it was about that sensitivity to your environment and how it impacts you. And I get that feeling that you learn from a very early age how life can impact you. So my question's this: you spoke about, you know, you skimmed over divorce, as it were, but you spoke about suicide. You're smiling now. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, if I think about it, it was, you know, I never really wanted to go. You know, I saw there's a comedian called Aisling B, who's great, and her father committed suicide. I think she was in her teens, and she was saying that he wrote her a nice letter once after one attempt, and he said, "Look, don't worry, I don't want to kill myself forever. It's just for a day. I just can't cope with that day. I just want to check out, but I want to come back when I'm feeling better, and I want to be a dad." And she said, "That's a really interesting way of putting it, you know." And I think I was very low and lost, and you know, I think looking back at my marriage, you know, my wife had quite a lot of damage from her childhood and her teens, and I naturally offer help. You know, that's one of my things, is that I'll try and fix someone or help someone. I've had lots of partners in the past who've had that, and I've been this, you know, superhero coming in to help, you know, and mend them. And I realized that what I was really doing was avoiding my own issues and mending myself, you know. And if ever she or they, because there were a few of them, would ever mention them, I'd freak out. "How dare you? You know, you nothing wrong with me, and I'm fine." You know, it took me a long time to realize that no, you know, that's what I was doing. And my girlfriend now isn't like that. I'm not fixing her. I'm not dealing with her problems. And I think I was ready for a relationship finally, you know, when I met her. But it does take a long time. And yeah, I mean, you know, suicide it's funny that the first time I thought about doing it, I was in my teens and I was in a mess. I wasn't doing well at school. I think I'd been expelled from school, and you know, I was falling out with friends and family and all that. I went up to the suspension bridge in Bristol to go and jump off, and then I stopped myself and I thought, I had two thoughts. That the first one was, my mum's going to be upset, you know, not sure about anyone else, but she'll be upset, and I don't want that. And secondly, we might win the league. We're quite close to winning the league.
Okay, I've got to throw this in now. So Liverpool LFC was a protective factor.
It was.
It really was. Staying alive. That's the first time I've heard that.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, it must have been 88, I think, and we were like a few weeks away from possibly winning the league with Kenny's team, and I thought, I don't want to miss that.
It's funny how the mind works. When you talk about that, you said this is the first time that you had experienced suicidal thoughts. When you look back at that first time, what emotions, what feelings does it bring up for you?
Well, now it's guilt, really. I mean, it was a cry for help. It was attention seeking and all that. I mean, I did feel terrible, and I wanted to go.
Okay, I want to stop you. You say attention seeking. I would change that to attention needing, attention requiring. You wanted to talk. You needed to talk.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't offering to talk, so I guess, yeah. I mean, I you know, I was lost, really. I didn't know what I wanted to do or be, and I didn't fit in at school clearly, and I didn't want to go and work. I couldn't think of a job or a career that I wanted to do. I could see, although very loving, my parents were disappointed, and a bit lost themselves. What do we do with this kid who's bright? He's doing, he was passing exams. He spent a fortune on his education, but he doesn't want to go. So yeah, I guess it was more feeling lost and having low self-esteem, feeling like I'm a terrible person, and why don't I fit in? Why can't I? But then getting into acting finally, which would have been a good 15 years later. Everyone I met was the same. As though I didn't fit in at school, and I was always messing about doing voices and impressions and all that. I didn't do any. I did 2 house plays, and I did like 1 line in a school play. But I had a terrible stutter at school, so I really wanted to do acting and singing and stuff, but I couldn't bring myself to do. I couldn't even read stuff out in class. But I found eventually doing voices and impressions and stuff and acting, you're being somebody else, so that the stutter doesn't come up as much. It's a strange thing,
Did you, at the time, did you feel like a burden?
I think I was too self-involved to feel like a burden, really. I think I just felt angry at the world and my parents and the school and all that, and just I'm a bit embarrassed that I was always failing. I was always in a mess. I was always getting caught out for lying or for cheating or for stealing or whatever it was, and I was trying to impress girls at the time, and making a mess of that, and people were calling me, a weirdo and whatever. So there was some shame there, and definitely some guilt, but yeah, I didn't feel like a burden so much, like, oh, I'm relieving my parents of a burden by going. Oh, my phone's fallen down. But yeah, I mean, it was a strange time. I guess in your teens, I would have been sort of 15 then. You're or 16. You're just trying to find out who you are, aren't you? You're trying on different persona and trying to be like your dad, or like the big kid in the year above at school who you think's cool, or or whoever it is, and you're not sure who you are. You're not being honest to yourself about who you are, really.
You said you've experienced thoughts of suicide more than once, or I'm reading into that. When was the next time after that?
Well, it was quite regular. I mean, I never felt like I was going to go through with it, but I felt so low, and I wasn't doing it in front of family or for them to find me or whatever. I was going off and hiding and sort of contemplating it then. But certainly during relationship, I mean, even in happy relationships, I was sometimes like once a month or so waking up really low and really suicidal. I was thinking, well, and that's since I'd worked with that shrink, and he'd give me that sort of revelatory info. So it was a strange thing. I think my dad getting diabetes was helpful to me, because I thought, God, he's got a sweet tooth, so have I, and I eat a lot of sugary stuff. Every meal I have a dessert, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Wow. Wow.
But I've always been skinny, so it never seemed a problem to me. But I used to get suicidal. I used to get very, very hectic brain and, lost and shaky and all that. And that was often if I hadn't had some sugary snack. So I'd then have something and feel fine for a bit, and then I get it back. So yeah, when he got that diabetes, I thought I better cut down. So I started looking into, sugar substitutes and eating different types of sugary snacks, and that really helped me, just slowly, incrementally lowering the amount of sugar I had each day. And then yeah, I haven't felt suicidal for a long time. I think during lockdown I did a couple of times, but I mean most of us did, didn't we? Most of us felt lost, and it was a very strange time, wasn't it? I had a couple of moments then when I just felt really low, because I had been doing well, you know, as an actor. I just done the Outlaws sitcom, and I thought, great, this is going to do well in UK and America. I'll get lots of work off the back of this. And then lockdown, and no one was working. And I had been doing well doing stand-up. I've been gigging, you know, 4, 5, 6 nights a week and earning quite good money. That all finished. You know, suddenly I had no purpose. I had no validation, I guess. You know, I was just the boyfriend, you know, and my girlfriend was very pregnant at the time, and she was working from home and she was heavily pregnant. So she was doing the two important things. I was doing nothing, you know, so I felt a bit low and kind of, again, lost. And I wasn't exercising as much because the gyms were all closed. I was just going for the odd run, or, you know. So, yeah, I guess that must be linked, you know, because there's a reason to be down, but not to get suicidal at that point, you know. So that must have been to do with feeling lacking identity and sort of, you know, wasting away into, you know, nothing.
Did you share that with your girlfriend? How you feeling?
Well, we had some really big arguments during her pregnancy, and you know, she's got the excuse of being full of hormones, you know, but I guess mine was just due to just lack of activity and boredom, and you know, worried that my career was ebbing away, and you know, I've got a child on the way, you know, and how am I going to support this child, you know? But I've spoken to her about it since, and yeah, I felt a bit suicidal when my father died in November. But that was passing. That was quite fleeting. It was a few days, and then I spoke to my sister and my girlfriend. I felt a bit, you know, more kind of resigned to it. And you've got to mourn someone, otherwise you just bottle it up, you know.
Are you still grieving?
Good question. I don't know, actually. It comes and goes. If you experience grief.
You know, it's funny. I'm been working with somebody today, and I asked myself that exact question. I have not experienced family grief ever.
Yeah.
You know, but I've lost their friends to
Yeah, same.
suicide, to death, and so for me, that's a different type. For me, it's felt like a different type of grief.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very lucky. I was talking to my sister, who's always positive and, you know, very helpful, and you know, she said, "Look, he was 82, he wasn't 42, and our parents were still together, which is very rare. We're so lucky to have had them all that time, you know. And look at it that way, and you know, and we'll never get over it, but just kind of accept it. And if you need to talk to him, go and talk to a picture of him, or go and talk to the river, you know." And I mean, we were lucky in a sense that he had this disease, and he was given a certain amount of time to live, and it was, you know, between 2 and 10 years. And then when it got to about 3.5, it was like, well, it'll be in the next year, you know. And he went at around four years in, you know. So we knew, and we were able to say all the things that we wanted to say, and you know, we were much more affectionate and communicative about our love, you know. And I asked him lots of questions and about his childhood and all the stuff that I thought I better do it now, you know, otherwise I won't be able to. But it comes in waves, you know. It's strange. I mean, I lost a few friends when I was younger, and a few colleagues in my 20s and 30s. And that was horrible, you know, but this is very, very different, you know. Someone who you looked up to and loved for 51 years, you know, is very different. You know, I used to speak to him, you know, once a month, and then down to about once a week, once my daughter was born, you know. And it's a huge hole, and it comes in waves, as I say, you know. It's little things that trigger me to think of him, you know. Like, he was a big Liverpool fan too, so whenever Liverpool won well or lost badly, I would call him, and we'd, you know,
Yes.
talk about it. or he was a big Beatles fan. You know, if any Beatles track came on, I'll always think of him. You know, or whatever. So it's an ongoing process. I think I'm not crying like I was, you know, for the first month. I'm not feeling suicidal at all. But yeah, it's a big blow, and hopefully Mum will last a bit longer. She's got a bit more longevity on her side.
Your daughter, how old's your daughter now?
Almost 4.
Almost 4. How has that changed you as a man, as a father, as a lover, as a human being?
Hugely. I mean, I think, as I say, again, it's an ongoing thing. You know, I'm having to learn how to be a father, really, and grow up a lot, because, you know, I'm a bloke, I'm an actor and comedian, so of course I'm quite into myself, and you know, I've always been, you know, very serious about, you know, having the right clothes and appearing in a certain way, you know, and being confident and you know, not coming across badly, and getting on with everyone, and all of this. And my career is important, and my, you know, relationships and my friendships and all this. And then having a kid, it's like, well, the kid is important. You know, that's what's important. The rest of it is less important now. And it's kind of, what's the word? You know, you feel free. You know, you feel suddenly free of a lot of those things. And as I say, I'm learning patience mainly, because I didn't have much patience before, especially having ADHD. But now I've had to learn to be a lot more patient. And it's a positive thing, because she's a very positive, bubbly, affectionate, active kid, and it's just lovely watching through her eyes. You know, she's learning about things in the world, you know, and loving stuff, and she's very positive. So that's helped. I mean, as a lover, it's a negative thing, because you're both just so tired. You know, my girlfriend works long hours, and she works in the evening as well, you know, preparing for the next day at work, and we're both shattered. So whenever we have arguments, which we do from time to time, we have these big arguments about nothing, and you think, what was it about? I've forgotten. It was yesterday. We had this big argument, slamming doors and shouting, and I can't think what it was about, you know. And it's really, what we're doing is going, I'm tired. No, I'm tired, you know, and how dare you be more tired than me? I'm more tired than you, you know. And often it's terrible, but my daughter would hear, and she'd say, stop arguing, Mummy and Daddy, stop arguing, which is a terrible thing to hear. But of course you do. You go, okay, you know. And because I never ever, this is quite, I didn't realize, but quite unusual, never saw my parents argue ever, or hear them argue ever. And that's probably not healthy, because I don't like arguing. I tend to sort of, you know, walk away from arguments with women. And with guys, I'll get aggressive, you know, or if I can't afford to get aggressive, I'll walk away from that, you know, or I'll say the wrong thing. I'll say something that's really a bit harsh, you know. So I didn't really learn to argue very, very well. But yeah, it's very, very different. Have you got kids yourself?
I have got, you know, something else has come up just as you, and I was thinking about this. I can't remember the last time I argued with my kids, and I've got older ones and younger ones, but I do reflect on what my role's been as a father. Have I been present? Have I been attentive? And I had, you know, I don't mind saying it, I had a difficult conversation with my eldest yesterday, you know, and it wasn't easy, but I felt that it was important, because he's probably got questions that he's always wanted to ask me, but he's never had the confidence to. So I provided that space for him to ask me, and to hear him ask the questions. And then for me, I didn't try to defend myself in any way, you know, but I'll use the word again, it was quite sobering.
Yeah, definitely.
But he just thanked me for giving him the space to have those types of conversations.
That's great. I mean, that's something that he'll always hold on to. You know, when he's in his rocking chair, he'll think back to that day yesterday. It's funny, isn't it? Because roles have changed a lot. You know, my dad, I didn't really see much growing up because he was so intent on earning money and putting food on the table, you know, and he worked at John Lewis, which was 6 days a week, and he'd leave before we got up and he'd get home after we went to bed, you know. So I spent a lot of time with my mum. She had 3 kids under 5 at home, you know. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, that whole idea of being present. I spoke to a good mate of mine recently who's just given up drink. Well, it was a good few years ago he gave up drink, but he said the main reason he gave up booze was to be present for his kid. He said, I was hungover, or I was, you know, after work going for a drink with the boys or whatever, and then I come back and I'd be irritable and I'd be saying, shut up, be quiet, getting stressed at my kid, you know, making too much noise. He's 18 months old, you know, he's 2 years old, whatever it is, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, you've just got to be there, and you've got to realize that, you know, this is the only chance your kid's got, you know, and these days go quickly. One of my mates who's an actor said, don't miss this bit. You know, I know you're fed up that you're not acting enough or you're not doing much work, but the first 5 or 6 years of a kid's life, do not miss that. You know, don't be away like our dads were, working and coming back to hear, oh, they've taken their first steps, they've said their first words, you know, because as actors, you know, we go on tour for months on end, or we go up to a different city or different country to film for a few months, you know, and I'm lucky in that my partner has a proper job, you know, in an office. So we've got money coming in. So I can be at home, you know, whereas most of my mates, actors, have got partners in the same game. So it's tough, you know, one of them's going to be away for a long time and miss their kid growing up, you know. Yeah.
It'd be remiss of me to talk about your mum and your relationship with her.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's funny because my brother has a real problem with my mum. You know, he blames her a lot for his ills, really. And as I said, she's not very affectionate or very vocal about love or whatever. But I mean, I've always got on, certainly since leaving home and realizing, bloody hell, they were spending lots of money. They were earning lots of money and spending it on us, you know. Having to suddenly, I remember moving out and getting a job, which was the modeling job. Going, wow, I'm getting paid loads of money. And then going, hold on, how much is rent? How much, what? You've got electricity, gas, TV license, water, council tax. Bloody hell, I didn't know all these things existed, you know, and you've got to buy your food, and then you've got to go out and have a life. Jesus. You know, I grew up a lot sort of realizing that. So I've got a good relationship now, or I have done for, you know, I guess it'll be 30 years. But I think leaving home, I left Bristol at first time, what was it, 19, I think. And then for good at 22. Although I was back in Bristol for 5 years doing casualty, but I left, you know, my mother's apron strings at 22, and that really helped, I think, our relationship. I really appreciate my mum. And I guess I'm closer now since my dad's illness started, you know, because I'm naturally just worried about her and care. She's got Alzheimer's and all this, and you know, she cries every night. She was telling me, you know, she said, "Oh, I've resigned myself to the fact that he's not coming back, but I was with him for 60 years, you know, from age 21, and he's not here now. But I do okay, and she's doing great. She's out and about every day. She exercises all the time. You know, she's swimming and playing tennis and table tennis, and she's got friends that she sees all the time and looking after herself. But at night, she's on her own, and she misses dad. You know, so it's tough.
Do you tell her you love her?
Yeah, I do. Which is, it's funny because, you know, she's not even a hugger. You know, so, you know, And
How does
and my
she
dad-
how does she receive that when you say that?
well, she, yes, 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 yes. Yes, of course. Yes, yes. You know, but it's funny because my girlfriend takes the piss out of me because I pat when I give someone a hug. I pat and move away. You know, which is her. Because if anyone hugs my mum, she goes, yes, 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 yes. You know, my dad was a proper hugger, which I do as well. But she spots it more than I do. But she'll see me doing it. You know, to some people when someone I'm not comfortable hugging hugs me, I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. And it's odd, isn't it? I've got a friend, I've got a close friend of mine who he hates hugs. You know, he cannot.
Okay.
He cannot do a hug. It's funny, isn't it?
It is. How have you felt talking today?
I felt good. I mean, as I said earlier, I think it's always good to talk about mental health, especially as guys, because we don't do it so much, you know. I heard something recently. Someone said, guys always say, "Hey, how are you?" You know, then we all say, "Yeah, fine," and then we move on to something else. But what we should say is, "No, but really, how are you? You know, are you up? Are you down? You had a hard time this week?" You know, and we don't really do it. I've got a couple of friends that I do that with now, but it's really important, isn't it? Because even just talking about mental health, or you know, offering advice, you know, again, not that I'm any expert, but you're talking to yourself and you're offering yourself advice. You're kind of reminding yourself, you know, and it's therapeutic, even if you're not, you know, having the therapy. You're talking. I had another great thing. If I've got time, there's a guy.
Yes.
There's a guy when you do Casualty as an actor. There's a real version of you there. So there's a real nurse, there's a real doctor, there's a real surgeon, whatever, telling you how to do stuff, you know, reminding you. Cut, that's upside down. Cut, don't do that. You're going to kill him. Much more softly, you know, whatever. And I played a psychiatric liaison officer, which is fascinating, you know. And it wasn't quite so much rush, save this person's life. It was why have you got injured? Why is this happening? You know. And I got to learn about lots of different areas of mental health. And the guy who I used to have giving me advice was called Pete Salt. And actually, Charlie on Casualty, his character is based on Pete Salt because he's a psychiatric liaison officer and also the senior staff nurse. Anyway, so I got to know Pete well. and he said therapy is so important and it shouldn't be a dirty
100%.
word, you know, because we all get it. You know, we all get it from our partners, our friends, our family, our whatever. It's when you don't get it. All it is talking. It's when you don't get it and you've got a problem you don't feel you can talk about that the problems really start. And actually, if you unravel it all, that little problem at first, you can talk about. Stop being silly. You know, that was easy to deal with. But you know, the what was the word you used? The psychoses that follow are built on top of that, and that's when the problems start. So you just got to keep talking, man. And you know, all of us, everyone who's ever walked the earth, has had a mental health issue. And you know, you just got to talk, and then you'll realise. I thought I was embarrassed about this, about feeling this way or that way, but they're doing the same, or they've got that going on, you know.
100%. I mean, one of the things that I've picked up off you is your openness and honesty, which is really refreshing to hear.
Thanks.
You know, you don't have hang-ups about it. Yeah, I did this in the past, and what? But judge me on where I'm at now at this moment in time.
Yeah.
If you could give advice to your younger 14-year-old self, what would it be?
Well, I guess it would be, you're going to be all right. And it would probably be, you know, don't get into drinking and eat less sugar and, you know, keep playing football. Because I got kicked out of school and stopped playing sports, you know, which was also a big factor. But I think it's, you know, I mean, it's a lot easier now for kids to get into drama or music or whatever else. Then it was you know, very difficult, especially if you're not in school. But that's what I should have done then. But I found my way there, you know, by accident, really.
You did.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of actors and singers, entertainers really tend to be quite open, and you know, if anything, too open. You know, there's the famous thing of actors going on tour and everyone sleeps with everyone else. There's 20 people here in the cast. We've all slept with each other and all, you know, opened our hearts to each other about our problems and our issues. And then the tour ends. You never see them again, ever. Really close friends. I love you so much. We've grown together. Bye. Won't ever see you again.
Right. Yes.
And then you meet the next lot.
What's next for you? You've done how many episodes? How many series of The Outlaws?
Well, I was only in one episode actually. I was in series 2, one episode, but it's done really well. So I'm hoping I'll get. I mean, I've been getting some really nice auditions. I've got a moved agent about 5 years ago, and he's great. He's got me some really nice, got me better, bigger auditions for, you know, for bigger shows and theatre jobs and films and stuff. But I'm not quite getting the work. So whereas with my last agent, I was getting, you know, the odd game. Now I've got my transfer. I'm not getting a game, you know. So I'm training and almost getting the work. So, you know, professionally, I'd love to get some more work. But personally, it's just, you know, as long as we can pay for the house and pay the bills, and we can give our daughter what she needs, not what she wants, but what she needs, then that's enough, really, you know. And being around her and learning to be a good dad, that's what I hope to do.
Absolutely. I think I already know what the answer is going to be, but I'll ask anyway. Who's the most important person in your life?
My daughter. Now,
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah.
Go on. I'll let you speak. Go on.
Well, I think it's funny, isn't it? Sometimes you hear people say, "Oh, you know, I knew she was the one or he was the one when I met my partner. They make me a better version of me," right?
Okay.
But and my girlfriend does to a certain extent, you know, but my daughter really does, because it's not just, you know, I would think it would be a huge effort to be a better person, to behave better, to avoid those things that you know are bad for you, and stop doing those things and stop behaving in that way. But actually just being with her, that's a given. Of course I'm going to do that. Of course, you know, I'm going to do the best I can for her. And if I'm not doing that, someone better tell me, and I'll stop doing the wrong things, you know. But yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? I saw something recently. Someone was saying that, you know, God or whoever you believe in, you know, if you're spiritual at all, did a very clever thing in that he didn't hurt childless adults as much as he could, you know, because you don't really know what you're missing, you know. And I wasn't sure if I'd ever have kids, and I was fine, you know. But having a kid, it just opens up a new part of your brain, and it's just a huge experience, you know. It's a massive life. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me, ever. And you think, I've done some great things, you know, but I want to live a full life. And I feel like not doing this when there was a chance to do it would have been foolish, you know. And I'm so happy that I have. And yeah, I mean, work, I'd love some more work, but the main thing is to be healthy and happy and make sure that my partner and my daughter are.
Okay. So you gave me a very long-winded answer there. What if I said to you that the most important person in your life isn't your daughter, but it's you?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's it. Of course. Yeah, of course. I don't feel like I am, but I guess I should be, and I should stop projecting everything onto my daughter and just be a good person anyway. But yeah. I'm certainly growing, and I'm happier, and yeah, being a father. And I think it's funny, isn't it? You know, there's a famous quote, isn't there, of John Lennon saying, you know, he was a mess as a kid, and he was a mess as a teenager, and he was an angry young man in his 20s, and he said in his 30s he was finding his way, and he said, what, you know, once he got towards the end of his 30s, he felt like, oh, I can relax now. I'm not worried about all these things that I was worried about before. I can just be myself, and I'm happy. I'm happy with who I am. And then he was shot dead, of course. But there is a sense, to me, that you get to a certain age when you think, God, I'm learning about myself. I'm hopefully maturing, and I'm more, maybe not enjoying moments as much. I'm not going out clubbing and partying and playing football and traveling as much and all that. But in general, I'm more content,
It's interesting you saying that, because I went to the beach at the weekend. And over in Anglesey. And before that, I'd gone to Lamberis. And on the way back, I went to Colwyn Bay. And just being out there in nature, it was like the volume had changed, the frequencies had changed. It felt like I don't know, it just felt peaceful. I wasn't in this concrete jungle of it in a city.
Yeah, it really helps.
Just outdoors with nature.
You get perspective, don't you? It makes your problems or your stresses and worries seem smaller. There's a famous quote. Let me try and get it right. There's a house on Capri on the Amalfi Coast, and you go into it. It's a beautiful house that this Swedish dentist built, and then he just left it to the state. You can go and walk around it, and it's got the views of the Bay of Naples and Vesuvius and Pompeii and stuff. This house that he built feels vast, but it was actually quite small. And people would go in and say, that's weird. When you step out, you see how small the house is and the garden's tiny. But I felt like I was in this great big mansion. It's weird. And he said, well, what I've done is I've got a house on top of a mountain, and I've got great big windows, huge great windows, and the garden is kind of curling around the house. But every time you take a turn, you've got a great big vista, and you feel powerful without knowing it. You kind of feel like free and powerful. And he said, the soul requires a space larger than the body provides, which is great.
It's superb.
Yeah. So if you're stuck in a prison cell or a straitjacket, you don't feel free and you feel stressed. And an office is no different, really. And walking around the busy streets again, I mustn't bump into them or whatever. Watch out for that car. But you go into nature like you did at the weekend, and we are animals. We are part of nature.
Yeah, and I think we forget that. We forget that too often.
Do you run at all?
No, I used to run, and I used to be quite sporty in that, and I do miss that. I do miss that aspect of things. And I think I miss the aspect of when I used to play football with my mates, that esprit de corps.
Yeah.
Being in a team.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
We were half decent, but it wasn't about that. It was just us coming together as, a band of brothers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's two big things. I mean, I live by the Thames here in London, and I can't run as far as I used to. I get shattered afterwards, and I've got a husky voice for a couple of days. But just doing 10 minutes of jogging along the Thames path here, it just clears my head, and I feel great, But yeah, it's true. That's one of the things I do miss about playing football. It's not just the serotonin that you get. It's the team sort of, what is it, camaraderie, isn't it? And
yes.
the banter.
Yes. Definitely.
And you call it
personalities. Yes.
Yeah. You call it horrible names.
I'm smiling. You're smiling, but we know what that means as well.
Yeah. Everyone's got a weakness, and you pick on each other's weaknesses. You give them a nickname about that weakness, and you tease to believe in everything. But you die for each other, and all that. And it's real.
Yeah.
It's something that I think lots of women don't get. That women don't play team sports as much, and women often don't get that. They think, God, it's terrible things that guys say. So well, it's just banter, really. Yeah, but banter's horrible. Banter is often, homophobic or sexist or xenophobic or racist even, and it's a terrible thing. But it's coming from all different angles. Everyone does it, and
100%.
It was the same at my school. I went to public school with kids from all over the world, you know. And everyone got a nickname and everyone got teased for something, you know. And looking back, yeah, some of it was racist, some of it was xenophobic, some of it was homophobic. But it wasn't meant in that way. So, you know, it's kind of it's very different. I think it's very different to be openly racist and trying to hurt someone than, you know, trying to be affectionate and not getting any feedback that you're being offensive. You know, it's a different thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And times have changed, you know.
Times have indeed changed. James Redmond, thank you for sharing what's been in your hurt locker. I've been really, really appreciative of today. Sincerely so.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. It's great to just talk about, you know, your past and your problems and just try and remind yourself of how you get through it and be positive. I liked how you're asking me what's next and all this. And yeah, I've loved talking to you. Thank you for opening up yourself too.
You're more than welcome. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully there'll be an opportunity for our paths to cross again. The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe.